Thank you so much for coming here and delivering a very effective speech.
Thank you.
So much interactive.
Yeah.
And your experience in this area is quite impressive because now for the last
35 years.
30
Yes.
years you
Yeah.
have been and you raised an important point of the power relations in the decision making.
Right.
Particularly, if you will see our country, still, the kind of those who are in the lower rung, they are not in the decision-making process of,
Right.
especially
Yeah.
the ecosystem
Yeah.
management.
Management.
So, in case of the river ecosystem, particularly this project, we want to have the maximum kind of partnering, effective
Yeah.
partnership. So, what are your kind of suggestions and recommendations for the country as a whole, especially the policymakers and the donor agency, to make the participation more inclusive?
So, yeah, that's an important question. Is the whole question of river restoration, river regulation, and other things. How do you bring in participation, different stakeholders or different interest groups
Yeah.
who in and around the river systems and things. So there are only my two suggestions are one, we need to have a very proper stakeholder mapping. In fact, today there are scientific methodologies available to do this mapping and things so that we don't exclude any communities. Very often in the participatory processes, what I have seen is that certain communities are excluded, and especially when it comes to rivers and things. Because the way we conceptualize community itself, there are problems, and so we need to disaggregate that community. Who are the different people, and what are also analyze what are the interests and stakes in the river. Now, for example, a farmer may have a particular interest in protecting the river or other things, but if a fisher, then the interest is to keep as much water in the river and pollution free so that he can use that, because that is not a consumptive use. Similarly, there are artisans groups who are using this water and things, or even types of caste hierarchies. Also, there are issues and things, Dalits, to the minorities. How do you bring this inclusiveness into the whole thing? That is the first thing. So, a proper stakeholder mapping and capturing the relationship with the river in terms of livelihood activities or other type of social cultural ties is something to be captured and things, and they should be part of this. Second thing I would say is that, which I also try to talk it out, that we need a legal framework which make this mandatory. Today, we don't have a legal framework where in which stakeholder engagement is compulsory, or what the stakeholders decide is not superseded or is adhered to. In some of the Western countries, that's the thing. Before you take a major decision, there's a stakeholder consultation which is constituted, and we agree upon certain basic principles, and whatever the decisions they take is mandatory, is final. To be implemented. Today, in our legal framework or policy framework, we really don't have that. So, otherwise, many initiatives were there to bring in community participation in terms of pollution control and various other type of things, but they could not go beyond certain things, mainly because we are moving in two parallel tracks. There's an NGO academic engagement of stakeholder processes and things, and there's a formal set of institution things. They don't talk to each other. So unless you can integrate this and give some legal teeth for this community participation and things. The second part of it is that's the legal part of it. Second thing is that, as you said rightly, there's an unequal power relations. Now, for example, a small artisan and a official, because they're all in a way stakeholders, there is an unequal power relationship, mainly because of the socioeconomic condition and things, and also nowadays the whole information asymmetry. Some people have all the information data, and some people don't have at all. So how do you create a level playing field for them? And that is the role of the NGOs or people's movements, even academics who are concerned and everything. So how do you provide data, provide new experiences, because people also change their choices in the light of new data, new experience and things. Second part of it is that empowerment is basically we need to do a lot more capacity building, including resource literacy, to so that people also make much more informed choices, which is more sustainable, more equitable, etc., etc. So this is what I would say, how we can bring in, and wherever successful experiments have been done, they have gone broadly through this route of this type of empowerment and things.
So we are also thinking of making a kind of network of like-minded institutions and
Yeah,
individuals
yeah.
and make it as a kind of movement for the ecosystem restoration. So you are leading such kind of a network.
Yeah,
Can you
we
tell me
do.
the kind of, what are the kind of issues which you face to make a network effectively function?
That's a little difficult question than the first one. Mainly because we start network with a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of inclusiveness. Gradually, what I have seen is that then the network, the full strength of the network, we can't bring it because people lose interest or people don't participate much unless we can also provide a continuous program to them. So one of the important challenges is that how do we involve all the partners in a programmatic level. So that very often doesn't take place. Even the water conflict forum, which I coordinate, we have these ups and downs and things. So there is a programmatic process, there is something activity going on, then a lot more people participate. But otherwise, it's very difficult to sustain their interest and things. So that needs an anchoring institution which is important, for whom this is a passion to do it and things, and they devote a substantial amount of their time,
Yes, time and
and
resources.
also
Yeah.
need some resources.
Yeah.
So these are also not. I mean, there can be some activity can be done on a voluntary basis.
Right.
We do some of those things, but if you have to do a little more on the line, like experiments or knowledge generation, lot more other things, or even campaigns and things, you also need some dedicated time for people, and so that also involves some resources and things. What I have found is that in some of these things nowadays, there's a reluctance to put resources
Yeah.
into these type
Into
of
this kind of
networks.
work.
People who want to implement things, then here and now things. But which has a little longer type of thing, but you have a multiplier in terms of its impact. Many of the funding
They are
agencies,
not trying
they
that.
are not too keen. This is my personal viewpoint. So I think that's how we can do it and things. So and it's important. Now, for example, if there's a large issue, then how do you bring all your membership to take a joint position, for example, on something? So that leads to more discussions and debate and type of thing. Then they own up that discussion things, or some on the ground activities
Okay.
and things. Then that I think will keep us going, and some resources.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. It
So,
was nice.
yeah, it was
Nice.
nice. It was
Yes.
nice.
Yes.
Yeah.